Okay, we're live. Hi, we are live in the B.A.K Playground with Dre Howard, Adjunct Professor at NYU Clive Davis. Thank you for joining us for the first episode of On the Road to Good at B.A.K Radio, where we highlight music executives who are working in a field that they're really passionate about and providing really positive impact in our industry, which is so needed. So Dre, thank you for joining me. Can you tell everyone who you are, your background, your career journey, and how you got to where you are as a professor at NYU?
Sure. As you mentioned, my name is Andre Howard. Most people call me Dre or Dre How. Um, I've been in the entertainment space for 2 decades. I mean, like almost 25 years in terms of how I got into the business. I started out right out of grad school. I went to a school upstate, two schools upstate, undergrad and grad, Niagara University and Buffalo State College, where I got my BA and my MA, and then I came to New York City. At the time I came here, the economy was still really, really good. And this was also during a time where the term I like to use is brick and mortar because everything is digital now. So everything back then was actual physical and tangible. So like literally like CDs and albums, like vinyl, not vinyl per se, but they still were making vinyl, but CDs and tapes and stuff like that was still really, really prominent in the music ecosystem. Um, and I worked at Def Jam. I was fortunate enough to get a job at Def Jam, and I don't want to gloss that over because I interned for a while. I interned, and I was probably like one of the older interns because I was done with school. Again, I just mentioned that I had a postgraduate degree. I had 2 degrees, and I was interning, but I just wanted the opportunity so bad that I did that. I interned, and I was like, I had this other job I was doing on the side. I had like 5 different hustles. You know what I mean? Because back then, any young person listening to this or will see this, you know, have some gratitude about if you're an intern and you're getting paid because back in the day, there was no paid internships. You know what I mean? Like, and you'd be surprised if they gave you some sort of way or stipend to get to and from the office, in terms of getting around on mass transit. But I interned, but I got around a good group of folks. You know what I mean? The person, Jaha Johnson, he's an executive in the game, been around a long time. He brought me in, and but I got to work with like JoJo Brim, who's another big executive. Kevin Lyles, of course. Leor was still there. Randy Acker, Todd Moskowitz, Julie, can't
Big
forget Julie.
names.
Yeah, Julie Greenwald, who's like the co-CEO and chair of Atlantic Records. So all of them was still there. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and Def Jam was hitting on all cylinders. And I would say it probably was like maybe the second or third iteration because the first iteration, will always be like, Tila Rock and LL Cool J and Beastie Boys and all that stuff. And then the second iteration, some would say was like the Warren G, when Warren G kind of kept the lights on him and an artist named Domino. Both were West Coast. But then the third iteration, was like J, Ja, X, Meth, Red, partnerships with Rockefeller, partnerships with Rough Riders. They had just started Def Soul, so they had Kelly Price, Cisco from Drew Hill had put out,
What was
had
it like working in that environment?
it was crazy. It was crazy. You know what I mean? Like it was crazy. It was a time before time, meaning I wouldn't want to do it any other way. You know what I mean? If that makes any sense. It was very hectic. It was a lot of pressure, but I feel like, it helped forge me, through the fire and make me have tough skin and be resilient, and be competitive for what I wanted to be for. I mean, listen, people in life, you're going to fight for what you want. Not everything is worth the fight, right? And not everything is a competition because you have to move at your own pace, right? And you have to, and how you may get to that same destination is different. I might have to walk around the block to get to the same way. You might go through the front door or through a window on the side, but as long as you get in there and you're learning along the way, And more importantly, you could look yourself in the mirror, you know what I mean, to how you got there, then it don't matter, you know. But
Nice.
it was crazy. It was crazy. It was a pressure cooker.
It's very different than what it is now.
What?
And I think like you work with young students at NYU. What's the difference in mindset? Like, I know my opinion of the difference in mindset between kind of when we were coming up and young, to what kids, I call them kids in our big age, the young professionals now and their mindset. What do you think the big differences are?
Well, it's a lot of differences, both pros and cons, right? Um, I don't want to put too much emphasis on how great my time was, and what I mean, because my time was borderline abusive. You know what I mean? Like straight up, like like verbally, you know what I mean, like psychology, psychological,
Mhm.
right? But again, like I said, it forged you because this is a tough business. You know what I mean? Like the music and entertainment business isn't for everyone, and that's okay. That's
Yep.
okay. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like you can, again, even I know people now teaching students. Some of them want to be performers, right? Some of them want to be executives. I love teaching these courses because it helps them decipher right away, right? Like, like they can figure out right away. And I tell them not to be intimidated by their peers. Like, sometimes, someone comes to the side, like, I don't know if I'm cut out to be a performer. You know what I mean? Like, John and Sally, and, Mike, and they're so good, I don't feel like I fit in. And so, if they're really, I always try to offer advice. I don't tell them to make a choice left or right. I just give them like a 50,000 foot vantage point and say, this is how I look at it, but you have to make your own decision. But also, too, I tell them, like, listen, look around the room because all these people are going to need representation one way or the other, right? So if you don't
Mhm.
want to be a performer, they're going to need an attorney. They're going to need a manager. They're going to need, you know what I mean? Like they're going to need marketers. So there's still ways you can work and fulfill that creative itch and that passion that you have about arts and entertainment without actually have to be in front of the camera. But to answer your question, the differences, one of the differences that they have that we didn't have is they have more access to information than ever before, right? So we had to learn by touching a lot of hot stoves, right? Like, oh shit, that's hot. I shouldn't do that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Whereas they can do that too. I think the access to information sometimes makes there's almost like the ingenuity isn't where it should be. Like I think
Mhm.
because we didn't know, we had to figure it out. Like how does this puzzle piece fit in what I'm
Yeah.
trying to do? Whereas like sometimes the puzzle's already together for them. So like the smart ones know, let me break it down and reconfigure it to see how it goes together because this is how I need to put my plan together. So that's one of the biggest differences. Um, and two, I think with the internet, we didn't have that. We didn't have that access to be able to, you know what I mean? Like
You had to go to the
right away.
library.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like we didn't have that. You can upload something and like it was so many middlemen that we had to go through in terms of putting music out and things of that nature. So um yeah, I think that's one of the biggest differences.
You're doing a lot of positive work right now. You had me come in and speak to one of the classes that you teach at NYU, which focuses on giving free opportunities for inner city kids to get an NYU education, which is phenomenal. It really blew me away to see the work that you do week after week on the weekends. Like you take your own personal time to teach these kids, and give them an education they might not otherwise get. Why did you decide to do that? Because and this is the reason I want to talk to you, is because you, unfortunately, we don't see that a lot in our industry, where people talk about mentorship or wanting to give back, but when it comes to actually committing to giving back, to doing the hard work, to showing up on the weekends, to take time out of your life and mentor and teach, that's really limited in our community. But you do it and you stay committed to it. Why was that important to you? Was it because you were in an abusive environment coming up as an intern? What drives you to be this kind of human?
Yeah, I think that is it. I think because so, just to go back to the school thing, this program, April, and you were there. April was the 20th anniversary of this program, right? So, I'm aging myself, but I don't even care. My age now, I wear it as a badge of honor that I'm still here, like because this is an industry, and I want to say this too. This is an industry that has a propensity to try to age you out. You're only as old as you feel, you're only as old as, the energy you put out, right? So I feel young. My body is getting older, but my mind feels young. Um, but I said to say, I applied for Tisch for this program. It didn't exist back then. It was just called the Music Entertainment Profession Program. I got accepted. I just didn't want to take out more loans, so I stayed local to where I was, which is I'm from Buffalo, New York. But um, to answer your question, I mean, I wish I had an opportunity to be in a program like this where I can learn from people who do these things real time,
Mhm.
and so like I think that's one of the biggest reasons why I get back. And also too, I see so much these people come from all walks of life. Be clear, this is NYU. So literally you have people who come from all walks of life. Some come from privilege, some come from blue collar families who literally their parents worked and they saved up the money to be able to send them to an institution like NYU. NYU is what we call public Ivy, right?
Mhm.
Like it's not part of, like Harvard and and Yale and Brown, but in America, it's a public Ivy school because it's a top 25 institution in the country, probably, right? Um, but it's super expensive, but also too, I see that from a standpoint of I see so much of myself in all these students, right? No matter where they come from, because we all have this creative passion and this creative like yearning, and so we're all seekers in some way. So when um when I got the opportunity to come on board, and I want to give a big shout out to my buddy Chris Wade, who put me into the loop. But when I got the opportunity to do it, I jumped at it. It's not the most lucrative thing, but I just get so much. Just literally, like, not to sound cheesy or sound like I'm trying to push people towards this, but it is everything you say. Like, I get so much out of it because it keeps me connected. It keeps me, it keeps me like, because, my day job, I'm a senior vice president of commercial partnerships for a company called Connect Music. It's based out of Memphis. It's a label, it's a distribution company.
Congratulations. I didn't, this is new.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations.
It's black owned, you know what I mean? My man, give a shout out to my man George Monger. But also too, just doing this, it keeps that balance for me. You know what I mean? So we're like, my job is my job, but this is a part of it that I feel like it connects in terms of having this information.
What are some success stories that came out of your students taking your class?
Um, oh man, I mean, you see a lot, like just in the program in general. I can name probably just like 3 or 4 students just over the last 3 or 4 years who've gotten like major record deals, right? And that's not even including like Maggie Rogers. Maggie Rogers, she's the biggest alum, I think. You know what I mean? Like if in terms of just name recognition, because she had that moment that's super viral with her and Pharrell, and she played her music for
Mhm.
Pharrell. Like Pharrell was just like mind blown. He had no notes for her music. Like he literally had no notes for it. He's like, this is crazy. But like, there's been students who've gotten record deals. Um, Obviously, students who are great executives, who are marketers and A&Rs at labels. Um, and more importantly, even the summer program I teach, just students who are actually enrolled in a program now, like who are like freshmen and sophomore and juniors in NYU who were in this program that I teach, and this curriculum I put together. So just to see them follow through on it, because again, if you have 10 students who, and normally it's around 30, 35 students, but if you got, let's just 10 for the sake of saying 10, if you have 10, sometime maybe only 2 or 3 may join or may get in, but like, just to see that they continue to follow up on what they want to do is always great.
So, working with students, and you had talked about internships a bit earlier. And shout out to Richard Tang and Willow Voss. They're part of our summer internship program. They're Clive Davis students.
Mhm.
So, why are internships important in your opinion?
Internships is uber important, no matter what field you want to get in, because you should definitely be aware of how it works, right? You can't go into any field, um, finance, entertainment, medical or health complex. Like you can't go into any of that, legal, without knowing how it works and knowing, and just seeing the day to day and getting that information from people who do it on a day to day basis. So I think internships are important, for learning just the dichotomy and learning, seeing how things happen within these communities, because it's not what you think. You know what I mean? Like especially in music. I mean, actually everything. I'm pretty sure there's, there's the glamour to what we do, and then there's probably the money to people think they can make in other industries. Like, yo, I want to get into real estate because I think, I can just sell, a building on, Madison or Park. But it's like, in the entertainment business, it looks glamoury, glitz and glamour, and everyone, when you're winning, it's great, and when you can, put moments for social media. But it's good to get behind the scenes and just see how an A&R discovers talent, to see how a marketer puts together a plan, to see how the finance department, which is again, that's another department that you should definitely get in tap with, like to see how they, audit and budget things, and and how money is allocated and things of that nature. So I think internships are important. Like you can't just walk into something and expect, because again, that's another thing about the generation. I'm sorry, I love you guys, Gen Alpha or whatever this is at the millennials. Some millennials, y'all fall into this shit too. But sometimes they just have this attitude of, they built the hospital that they were born in. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, that's not how it works. You know what I mean? Like, that's not how it works.
We run a pretty intensive intern program every semester. We have fall and spring. We have 12 interns. Summer we have 10, and they do real work. They build their portfolios. They are given tasks that they are accountable for. They're given group projects. They have to work together. No one's getting coffee. No one's just filling out spreadsheets. It's real actual work in music. And there's certainly a difference between, I think, when we were coming up in internships and the level of hustle and dedication to what I see now. Some of these students clock out at 5 p.m. Like there is no responses after 5 p.m. or they expect you to kind of give their answer. Like I had one whose job was to come up with different content for a social platform. And her response was, well, can you draft the content for me? Can you draft the language for me? Literally her assignment, and asking me to do it for her and to give her a starting point. And there was no drive to try things. There's no drive to figure it out. Like you said, to put the puzzle pieces together. And that's an advice I would give anyone as a student. But what is some advice, constructive advice you can offer students who are really trying to commit to getting ahead? What do you think is really most important for them to know and not to
do? That's great. Everything you just said is so great. And I almost can't add to it, because it's true. It's like, like literally, like, like they just stop replying to, messages and emails, like, like, oh, I'm done for the day. Like, my advice to anyone trying to get into this business is that you need chutzpah, you need hustle, you need drive, you need to be, use ingenuity, you need to use discernment. But none of that, like, this is the beautiful thing about, I tell my students, in terms of checking their ego and even having this degree when they leave, right? NYU degree will open a lot of doors. Any college degree, to be honest, you know what I mean? Like, if you, in your respective field, because college, having a degree is showing stick-to-itiveness, right? Because, you don't have to go to school if you're jumping right into the workforce and certain things, right? I mean, look how many people now say they have degrees and they can't find jobs. But what I will say about trying to get into this business, that NYU degree don't matter if it's somebody who's going to outwork you, you know what I mean, and who's putting in the time, energy, and effort to perfect their craft. Another thing I would tell them is that you cannot be in this business if you're not socially adept, because that's where the business is. Like, it just clicked for me recently, because sometimes I used to get so like perplexed just asking students, like, how do they engage with content and playlisting and social media, and most of them like, I don't really do this, that, I don't. And I always get like, what, like, but I have to remember that they're cut from the same cloth I'm cut from. So like, they're seeking, and they're not necessarily consumers in that way. You know what I mean? Like, they're not like uber consumers where they like just listening to pop music all day. You know what I mean? Like, they're actually trying to forge their own way, or they're looking at it from a different vantage point, where it's not like some kid in the Midwest, or, not anywhere, not to use Midwest as an example, but like, just some place where like there isn't access to the stuff that we have to. I think sometimes living on the coast, like if you're on the East or West Coast, we're spoiled in a different way in terms of how we have access and able to move around, even like our communities that we deal with, because I can
Yeah.
get on the subway right now and then bump into you. In LA, you get in your car and you go drive and meet your family, your friends. So it's like it's not that same sense of community where you're like, oh, I saw so and so on the train. We're gonna meet up for lunch tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like everything is planned. So just having them take advantage of opportunities when you're in these type of communities. Like, yo, put yourself out there, do shows, make
Hmm.
content. I'm not saying everything has to be super curated, because actually the more vulnerable that you show yourself to be, the more you're going to tap into people who can relate to you, because you're speaking for them, you're speaking to them, should I say.
Yeah. And I think I know I did it in my 20s where it's like partying and hanging out and being social. But I think now in my big age, in my fourth decade, um, I wish I would have focused in my 20s. Like forget the party. First of all, the parties are so much better in my 30s and 40s, right? Like they're just it's better. You have more money to spend, you get
I
nice
was about to say that
like,
it's a party so much better when you have money to spend.
right. So like focus on work and get it done. But I think in the last 5 minutes of our chat, what advice would you give to our peers, right? The professionals that have been in this game for a while, that are focused on their career and their work, and everyone is so busy, right? And I don't say that lightly. It's we are all really busy. We are all dealing with mental health issues because our industry is really strapped for jobs and cash. But it's so important, I think, and you're a living epitome of giving back, prioritizing giving back. What would you say to our peers that don't prioritize that?
um I would say find out, tap into like your passion. Obviously, I'm fortunate enough to have made my passion into my profession. I'm fortunate, I'm grateful, and I thank God for that every day. I really do. Like, because it's unique. Because again, we know people in our industry who this is just a job for them, and I'm not mad at that. And if that's the case, my advice would be to them is, if you are passionate about something outside of your 9 to 5, no matter what it is, then try to make that. I'm not even saying you have to make it for profit, but try to do it to where it provides some work life balance to say, if I am going to turn this email off at 9 to 5 and I come and I leave and I go home, then you know what? When I go home, I'm going to work on my baked good business. I'm going to work on my email business, or my fashion line, or I've been saying I had plans to start this book or magazine or e-zine or photography. Like, put time, energy, and effort to that. I know, and again, if you have children, that makes it even more, because a third layer, right? Because that's really the first priority, even above the job. You work the job so you can
Shout out to
take care of them.
Roblox.
Yes. You know what I mean?
Being a babysitter. Yeah.
Oh man. But you have to make time, and I say this as a parent, you have to make time for yourself, because you can't get lost in too much in that. You know what I mean? Like, everything you do is for them and for, and moving your family forward. But you have to make time for yourself to make sure that keeps your mental health stable, right? And it keeps you happy. So you have that one thing that could be a hobby, that you could do offline, and then maybe turn that into something bigger, right? Uh, in terms of giving back, you got to give back, one way or another. You have to volunteer time. I don't care if it's, donating old clothes, you know what I mean? Like, but you have to give back, because we all stand on the shoulders of giants, of people who walked a path before us and made it easier for us to see further, right? So, we can't just leave stuff. And listen, I'm saying this, I can't believe I'm saying this, because sometimes I get really frustrated with the younger generations because of certain things. But there are, when you see that they have that light, you got to nurture that. You know what I mean? And they have that in them. You have to nurture that so that they can provide and be for the next situation, especially in our community, in urban communities, because sometimes, again, just you and I, we both joke about our age, but that doesn't happen in other communities. Age is a badge of honor in other communities. You know what I mean? They seek out that wisdom. They seek out the fact that someone's been somewhere for 10, 15, 20 years. With us,
Yeah.
the first thing, oh, that cat is old. You know what I mean? You don't know, or, look how they treat our legends. Oh, Jay-Z, he old. You know what I mean? Nas, old. You know what I mean? Comment, old. Like, no, like that. Guess what? And they're richer than every artist that you listen to. You know what I mean? Like, and more importantly, they, you know, like their impact is bigger than every artist that you listen to. So, you know, we have to make sure we give back so they can have an understanding. That's another thing too. Teaching these kids, I don't even think they would know who Clive Davis is if there wasn't a fucking 6-foot cutout of him in the
That's
hallway.
crazy.
You know what I
It's
mean?
a lack of respect almost. And I think when we give back, we teach the younger generation to respect the older, right? It's like
Yeah,
a give and take here. And how are they going to respect if we don't let them know what we've done and we don't teach them and we don't usher them in? We leave it to them to figure out how to move forward in life, and that includes respecting the older generations and working with us and appreciating everything we've done. So that really resonates with me.
100%. I think you know, we have to, you know, you know, again, just using the Clive example, it's like, do you know, like this is like one of the three wise men of this business? You know what I mean? Like literally, like he's, you know, like, you know, come on, man, like I can name it, Santana, Whitney, you know what I mean? Like, you know, like just who the people he signed and worked with, Janis Joplin, like there's so many artists, you know, that who shaped culture, you know, and so like, you know, you got to give back so you can have an understanding of the people who paved the way for you that came, you know, that came before you.
Yeah, amen. Is there any last words you want to leave the B.A.K Playground with?
No, I love what you guys are doing. I love it. I love it. I love it. The platform looks great, right? Like, you know, I'm on there now and the platform looks great. And you know, you know, as an entrepreneur, you know, I just say keep doing what you guys are doing, and I'm here to help any way I can. You know what I mean? Like what you and Leroy are building, excuse me, you know, is great for this community and ecosystem and keeps you guys dialed in and tapped into upcoming talent, you know, and you know, you guys are, you know, purveyors of culture. So,
I appreciate you. And how can people reach you? Where can they find you besides in the
oh,
playground?
you can reach me at on Instagram. I'm just like at Dre Howard, DREHOWARD. And on X is just at Dre How. You'll be disappointed at X because all I do is argue. You know, like I'm one of them people. All I do is argue, but sports. It's only sports. That's the only thing I get a little bit out of pocket, but I'm an avid Buffalo Bills fan. So like I just argue all day about my quarterback. You know what I mean? I don't give a fuck. You know, see, I'm getting my mind right now. I'm getting defensive. You know what I mean? But like, yeah.
So, well, thank you so much. Shout out to Ghost who's listening to the live stream. I appreciate you.
Indeed.
You guys should actually connect. I think you'd be a great mentor for Ghost, who's an up and coming manager and starting his agency. You could probably learn a whole lot from you. He's in Brooklyn too, so I'm going to connect you guys. That's what the playground's all about. So, thank you, Dre. I really appreciate your time, your energy, and the work that you do in our community.
Oh, good. I appreciate you, yo.
Have a great day.
You too.
I'll
Talk
talk
to
to
you.
you soon.